Dear students, welcome back to this e-class, and today we'll be concluding chapter 2, that is writing and city life, as this is lecture 4. So in this we are going to talk about not only the urban construction of the Mesopotamian cities. I will be also talking about a separate trading town called Mari. So let's see what's there in this chapter. So today we are going to see about the city of Ur, which was located in the southern part of Mesopotamia. And here you can see the archaeological excavations in this picture about the city of Ur, which also had quite big buildings made up of baked bricks and clay. So all about Ur. Ur was one of the earliest cities whose ordinary houses were systematically excavated in the 1930s. It showed that narrow, winding streets indicated that the wheeled carts could not reach many of the houses because the streets were too narrow. So, probably the sacks of grain and firewood would have arrived on the donkey back. Now, narrow winding streets and irregular shapes of houses, plots also indicate that there was any kind of town planning. There were no street drains also. Drains and clay pipes were found in the inner courtyards of the houses. Probably the house roofs, they sloped inwards and the rainwater was channeled via drain pipes into sumps in the inner courtyard. So this entire thing shows that there was no considerable town planning, unlike the Harappan civilization in the Indian subcontinent, which had shown quite a good town planning. Now people seem to have swept all their household refuse into the streets. This made the street levels rise and thresholds of houses to be raised. So we find that people actually took away all their household trash and refuse and garbage and threw it outside. Here we should know what is a sump. It's a covered basin. A sump is a covered basin in the ground into which water and sewage flow. That was so much about the street and the planning, town planning, and all. Now we see the domestic architecture and the superstitions related to that. Now, light came into the rooms not from the windows but doorways opening into the courtyards. This would have given them privacy. And they were very superstitious also. They had various superstitions attached. For example, a raised threshold brought wealth. A front door that did not open towards another house was considered to be lucky. Another funny thing that was observed was that if the main wooden door of a house opened outwards instead of inwards, the wife would be a torment to her husband. At a town cemetery, graves of royalty and commoners have been found, but few individuals have been found buried under the floors of even the ordinary houses also. Next, we will see a trading town in a pastoral zone called Mari. After 2000 BCE, the royal capital of Mari flourished. Mari, as you can see in the map, is located upstream on the river Euphrates. Agriculture and animal rearing, they were carried close to each other in this region. And some communities of Mari had both farmers and pastoralists, but most of its territory was used for the pasturing of sheep and goats. So in this map, you can very well see the location of Mari, which is located very close to Euphrates and it's located little upstream. Let's take a look at the life of the people of Mari. There was continuous, as it is said, that there was continuous conflict between the farmers and the animal herders, that is, pastoralists. The herders needed to exchange young animals, cheese, leather, and meat in return for grain, metal tools, etc. And even the manure of the pent flock was also useful for the farmer. But conflict arose with the farmers. For example, a shepherd may take his flock to water across a sown field, and this will be ruining the crops. Herdsmen, since the pastoralists were mobile and moving from one place to another, they could easily raid agricultural villages and seize their stored goods. The farmers may deny pastoralist access to river and canal water along a certain set of paths. So this was the interaction of both and the conflict between both the communities. Historians, through their studies, have revealed the life of the people of Mari, and through Mesopotamian history, nomadic communities of the western desert filtered into the prosperous agricultural heartland. Shepherds would bring their flocks into the sown area in the summer, and such groups would come, various groups of people would come to Mari, this place, in form of herders, harvest laborers, hired soldiers, and occasionally they become prosperous and settle down. They became prosperous and settled down. A few gained power to establish their own rule also. These included the Akkadians, Amorites, Assyrians, and Arameans. The kings of Mari were actually belonging to the Amorite community, and they dressed differently from the original inhabitants of Mari. Even the kings had raised a temple at Mari for Dagon. Dagon was the name of the god of steppe, apart from respecting gods of Mesopotamia. So, as we see in Mesopotamia, every city had its own god and goddess, but Mari had a specially god known as Dagon, the god of steppe. Now, in this slide, you can see a statue which is actually showing the king of Mari. And as we have already seen that the kings of Mari, they belong to the Amorite community. So notice their difference in the way of dressing up, their way of dressing, and the way of covering their face as well as the way of covering their heads. In this slide, you can see the architectural plan of the palace at Mari, and this palace belonged to the king Zimrilim, who was reigning who stayed in Mari between 1810 to 1760 BCE, and it is said that it covered an area of about 2.4 hectares, and it was a sprawling structure having 200, just imagine, 260 rooms in this entire area. In this slide, you can see the palace at Mari of King Zimrilim, and in the next slide, you can see the paintings which have been found at the palace. And it is said that uh, the historians as well as the archaeologists, they have numbered his rooms, and as we have said that there were 260 rooms. And in room number 132, the entire wall was covered with paintings, so which you can see the replica painting in this particular slide. Let's talk about the life of the people of Mari. And it is said that the kings of Mari had to be very, very alert. They had to be very vigilant because the herders of various tribes, though they were allowed to move in the kingdom, but they had to be watched. And it is said that camps of herders find mention in letters between kings and officials, and sometimes it is mentioned that the officials suspected some kind of raid or some kind of attack on another camp. So that is why the kings had to be very vigilant. And let's talk about trade in Mari and beyond. Now, Mari traded in wood, copper, tin, oil, wine, and various other goods that were carried in boats along the Euphrates between south and the mineral rich uplands of Turkey, Syria, and Lebanon. So it is said that Mari, though its location was not entirely in the south, it was a little upstream on the river Euphrates. It was considered to be an urban center prospering on trade and commerce. Trade in Mari and beyond. It is said that boats carrying grinding stones, wood, wine, and oil jars, they would stop at Mari on their way to the southern cities. Officers of this town would go aboard, inspect the cargo, and levy a charge of about one-tenth of the value of goods before allowing the boat to continue downstream. And barley came in special grain boats, and in tablets they refer to copper coming from a place called Alasia, the island of Cyprus. Tin was also an item of trade, and bronze was the main industrial material for tools and weapons. Although the kingdom of Mari was not militarily strong, but it is said that the kingdom of Mari was exceptionally prosperous. What kind of life did they have in the city? Let's go talk about that. Now, Mesopotamians, they took pride in their cities, and it is found in the Gilgamesh epic. Gilgamesh was the ruler of Uruk sometime after Enmerkar, another famous ruler of Uruk. And let's talk about the contribution of the Mesopotamians in maths and science. First, we talk about maths. Dating around 1800 BCE are tablets with multiplication and division tables, square and square root tables, and tables of compound interest. And the students had to solve the problem as following. Suppose a field of area such and such is covered 1 finger deep in water, and now you have to find out the volume of water. So this kind of science or this kind of maths was quite advanced in those days. It would be unfair if we do not talk about the contribution of the Mesopotamians in the field of maths and science, because whatever maths, whatever science we are following currently, it is the contribution of the Mesopotamians. Imagine the division of year into 12 months according to the revolution of moon around the earth, the division of month into 4 weeks, the division of a day into 24 hours, the division of an hour into 60 minutes. All these have come from Mesopotamia. And whenever solar and lunar eclipses were observed, their occurrence was noted according to the year, month, and day. There were records about the observed positions of stars and constellations in the night sky. In Mesopotamian schools, the students read and copied earlier tablets. Some boys were trained to become not only record keepers for the administration but also intellectuals who could build on the work of their predecessors. So, with that, we come to the end of this chapter, and by first, second, third, fourth, and lecture, I'm sure your concept has cleared over the time regarding Mesopotamian civilization and its immense contribution in the field of history, not only in the field of history, even in the field of science and maths. Thank you.